Hey, what is up guys, kolst here. So the mini set again is coming out very soon and all the cards have been revealed now. And we are doing this video in challenge mode because I don't have time to edit this. So we're going to do this one take. Let's do it live. But yeah, let's just go right over this. I just want to make this video to talk about all the cards. And of course, again, before we get into it, there are a bunch of cards. Rarities don't really matter given, except the legendaries because the deck restriction, but otherwise there are 66 cards in this set. You can again buy it in the shop for either $14.99 converted in whatever your local currency may be, or 2,000 gold. And otherwise, yeah, let's just get right into this as soon as possible to talk about these cards. So there are going to be, I'll talk about these later. These are the cards that were pilgrims in the original translation, but these are the adventurer cards. I'll just talk about it now. So basically, these are all the possibilities when they have these cards that summon an adventurer with random text on it. It could be any of these things. Basically, these are the there are 8 of them. How it was explained by Blizzard is that they're the 8 texts available in the core set. So that is Taunt, Divine Shield, Spell Damage, Lifesteal, Wind Fury, Poison, Stealth, and Rush. So obviously, it really depends on the situation, exactly what you're going to want. Honestly, any of these could be the best one in any situation. I think in Arena, the most common, most relevant ones are probably going to be Poison and Divine Shield, and maybe Rush. But, again, like any of these could be the best one in very specific situations. Even Stealth. Stealth's probably the worst, but maybe you just need 2 face damage, right? And that Stealth that they just can't kill might be the difference, right? So, interesting thing as well. But yeah, let's talk about this. So there are I think we're going to talk about these cards later. They're just talking here about there's some synergies, more school support, which they said they were going to do, and they didn't really do on release of introducing the spell schools. So they're just talking about some of these cards are starting to utilize that spell school synergy a bit more. But with that, let's just get right into these cards. We're going to just go right down the list class by class. And so we're going to start with Demon Hunter. So Demon Hunter number 1, Sigil of Summoning, a 3rd sigil. I believe there are 2 sigils and they see virtually no play. They're not terrible cards. There's the 3 damage AoE one and the silence all enemy minions one. This one is probably the best one introduced now. It's a 2 mana shadow spell. At the start of your next turn, summon 2 2/2 demons with taunt. So that just seems like a really good card, honestly. Like, you're just getting 2 mana for 2 2/2 taunts. The fact that they're delayed really just means that you can't really get quite the, aggressive potential out of just getting 4 forward in stats for 2 mana. But, I mean, this is obviously a more defensive-minded card. This just seems like, I mean, compare this to, like, something like Barricade, which is 4 mana for 2 2/4s, but that's on a really hard condition. This card is just really efficient. Like, this definitely seems like it's going to be a very strong card, and clearly seems like, honestly, the best. Because it doesn't have, like, any potential downside, like the 3 damage all AoE one. Like, this just seems like it just seems really solid. It just seems really good. I think there's not much to say there. And he has a rare, so you'll see it pretty often. Next is an 8 mana 8/8 taunt, Taint Heart Tormentor. With a text, your opponent's spells cost 2 more. So, an 8 mana 8/8 taunt just seems, I mean, Ironbark Protector would be terrible now, right? It's just, stats have moved past this point where that's even remotely playable. The fact that in Arena, like, the fact that your opponent's spells cost 2 more, I mean, it just means, like, if they do have a Hex, it's great that at least your 8 drop, they have to pay 6 mana for their Hex instead of 4, but, like, they're still gonna do it, right? So, like, this card isn't terrible, it just doesn't seem like it's particularly good. It is a demon tag, so I think the idea would probably be more, like, maybe if you have the right combo to be able to pull a demon out somehow or cheat it out, that you might be able to play it that way without having to actually spend 8 mana. As is, like, yeah, it's probably not it's not a terrible card, but it's not going to be one that I think you're going to be looking forward to picking all that often. Maybe off of Discoveries you might just want it if you just happen to want to taunt, and you don't get anything better. But, yeah. A playable card, but not great. Next we have Fell Rattler, which is a 3 mana 3/2 rush, which is not too great. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. But Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. So basically, I said it wasn't that great, but I mean, you add that up. This is a cleave. This is a 3-mana cleave. I mean, sorry, it's a 3-mana swipe. You know, Druid doesn't get swipe. Naturally, Demon Hunter gets the stuff that other classes don't get to have anymore. That just seems to be Demon Hunter's design philosophy now. So yeah, Demon Hunter just gets 3-mana swipe. Awesome, right? I mean, it can't bypass taunt. That could be, it can't go face, but you know, generally, I mean, this is an extremely efficient card. It's going to be a really strong addition to Demon Hunter, and it's a common, so you're going to see it a lot. This is going to be something you probably just have to expect they have, and you're going to need to always be playing around because you're going to see a lot of it. It's unclear if, you know, they may or may not give the mini set an offering bonus just because they're new, and especially if they do, you're going to see this. You're just going to assume they have it because they usually will. All right, let's move on to Druid. The next one is Fangbound Druid. This is one which I believe was announced yesterday. This is a 3-mana 4/3 taunt, which is already solid. And then Death Rattle, reduce the cost of your beast in your hand by 2. So because of cards like Sunwell Initiate, I've been feeling for the last month or so that 4/3s are better than 3/4s. So this is, I mean, just it's a 4/3 taunt, which is already good, and then potentially, I mean, you could be a net 1 cost taunt, obviously, you know, with delay, but and you have enough beasts in Druid that a lot of times you're just gonna get this, even if you just hit an acorn. You know, if you just hit a squirrel from Acorn Bear, like, I mean, it's still value, right? You get to turn something into a wisp. Might make your buff turn a bit better. So I mean, it's just a really, really solid card. Not gonna be the most broken thing ever, but just really good. Next one is Lady. 2 cards that we already talked about in the other video. Lady Anaconda. This is a 6-mana 3/7. Your legendary. Your nature spells cost 2 less. In Arena, I mean, this is playable maybe, but like, you just don't tend to have that many nature spells. There's going to be way more insane things you can do in Constructed with this card, but as far as Arena is concerned, I just don't see this really being worth it. Like, there are just so many other legendaries you'd rather have that are easier to pull off than this synergy based card that doesn't really, in Arena, you're not gonna have enough synergy to make this upside like super significant, so it's not going to be super good, I don't think. And same thing along this kind of category, Deviate Dreadfang. This is an 8-mana 4/9, which is just giving up an extremely large number of stats. And again, you're just not going to have enough nature spells to really make this work. Ideally in Constructed, there probably will be, you will be seeing this card probably in Constructed with, you know, it's basically Spell Druid 2.0, the deck that used to play Exotic Mount Seller as its carry. Now you just have, this is essentially a better Exotic Mount Seller, right? So you will see that, but in Arena, occasionally you're probably going to get memed by it, but I just think it's not going to be, on average, nearly good enough that you're usually going to want to pick it. But if you have, like, you know, if you just happen to have 10 nature spells, you see this, then maybe it'd be worth a shot, but still a little crazy. Moving on to Hunter, we have a 0-mana spell, Serpent Bloom. Give a friendly beast poisonous. So that is a very potentially strong swing card here. Every little 1/1 beast is all of a sudden going to be freaking terrifying. Essentially, if you think about it, this essentially brings it to, in that situation, if you have a 1/1 beast, Serpent Bloom is basically like, you know, the original Hunter 0-mana Hunter's Mark. You know, that was a card that they removed from the game because it was busted as hell. So this will be a very, you know, potentially, obviously you need to have the right, the fact that you need a beast is difficult. You may not have exactly the right thing, but I mean, that's just such a high potential swing that's impossible to rule this card out. It's probably gonna be a card that you're gonna pick like decently highly, but you know, you still probably wouldn't, because it's difficult enough of a condition. Unless you have the right synergy for it, you probably wouldn't take it over like a super premium card, but you know, it's definitely solid. Talking about cards that will combo extremely well with it, the next card on the list, Cinderace Scentfinder. 4-mana 1/6 with Frenzy, summon 4 1/1 hyenas with Rush. So this is interesting because you do tend to play a bit more aggressive with Hunter. Well, you can go, you kind of see people go one way or the other. Super aggro or super control. This is much more of a control card. As an aggro card, it seems pretty bad. You're only summoning a 1/6. It might not even trigger immediately. The 1/1s only have rush, they can't go face, but As a control tool, this card is potentially very, very strong. Assuming you actually get the Frenzy, and it has 6 health, so it's pretty hard to deny, but it could be denied. But if you get the Frenzy, then that's a lot of value. 4 1/1 rushes could be a card by itself. So you're just getting a free 1/6 body. The fact that, to be honest, it might actually be a better card if it was just 4 1/1 rushes, just for the guarantee. The 1/6 body might not be worth that much, but you know, if you can do it, you can potentially trigger it yourself. And just Hunter loves to have these kinds, you know, this kind of stuff like Unleash the Hounds, stuff that they don't have anymore, just to be able to deal flexible damage, because that can be Hunter's downfalls, that they can't do that. So this really fills a weakness of Hunter. But yeah, again, you do have to make it work, and you're committing a bit of tempo because it's only a 1/6, but it seems like a pretty good addition to Hunter. I think Hunter likes having this card. Talking about other cards that Hunter will really like, Venom Strike Bow, 4 mana, 1/2 poisonous weapon. So I guess like the closest thing to compare this to, Rogue also had a poisonous weapon with 2 charges through a Venom weapon, which you could potentially put on another weapon and then have more charges. But yeah, I mean, what is there to say? You have to take the damage, obviously, but it's 4 mana for 2 assassinates, which is more efficient than Dagger and Venom weapon was. This is just disgustingly strong card. This is like, honestly, this is probably going to be, this might be the best Hunter card, actually. I may be being a little be a little hasty with that, but yeah, this is insanely powerful card. You will probably pick it almost every time, I think. This honestly seems like a card that you would have in single player. It's like, you know, cards that you normally wouldn't see in this game mode. But yeah, moving on to Mage. Mage has a 3 mana spell, Shattering Blast, destroy all frozen minions. So, you know, obviously they have Mage is getting a lot of ways to freeze now. All 3 of these cards are actually interacting with freeze. It seems like they really want freeze mage to be a thing again, but not really like the original freeze mage, more of a tempo based deck. But anyway, yeah, so you have things like, you know, the 1 mana freeze spell, Kona Cold, Brain Freeze, Kona Cold, potentially the 4 mana legendary, which is Frost Nova on a stick. And then you can combo any of these things with this thing to potentially destroy a full board or multiple minions, whatever. And yeah, this is, you know, typically these kind of cards, like the original was Shatter, which was 2 mana and it only destroyed 1 frozen minion, which was pretty bad. Then they've been continually creeping the power level of these cards up as well. In the core set, I believe there's the 1 mana Snap Freeze, which is freeze or destroy a frozen, or is it just destroy a frozen? I forget. We're doing one take, so I'm not gonna look it up right now. But yeah, so generally these kind of combo cards haven't been that good, but I mean, I feel like we're getting to the point now where there's just so much potential here. If you play it with like Dungeoneer, for example, you can potentially, there's so many ways that you could potentially get multiple triggers of this and kill multiple minions. I think the sheer potential power level of this card is way too high to just toss it aside. It's just like Shatter. Like, no, I think it's obviously it's going to depend on your deck. You wouldn't just take it because you're still probably not going to be expected to have a bunch of freezes, but this is such a strong effect that you'll probably go for it a decent amount and feel correct about it. We will see. Probably not. So probably not going to be like the best card objectively, but it will be in some games it will be the best card. Some games it'll be useless, so it's just very hit or miss. Moving on to the next card, Frostweave Dungeoneer. We talked about this earlier because these were leaked on the Russian website, but yeah, this one, there are a few of these that do this, which are they're all 3 mana 2/3 draw spell with an additional effect based off of synergy. So again, like as I said in the original review, if it's a frost spell, summon 2 1/1 elementals that freeze. Again, freeze synergy here. For this card, the downfall of this in Arena will be that it's just there are a lot of good mage spells that are not frost. So the odds of you actually drawing a frost spell are not going to be super high. If you do get it, especially if you can hit this on curve, like this is like a 4-drop. This would be like probably an overpowered 4-drop if it was just a 4-drop. So you're getting a really good 4 for 3 mana. It's just a lot of tempo. It's going to be, you know, that's going to put you at a really significant advantage. But again, you know, worst case, a lot of times you won't get it. Probably most of the time you won't get it. But 3 mana, 2/3 draw spell. Spells are good. It's nice to have them out of your deck. So this card's never going to be bad. Right? It'll always be at least decent. And then moving on to the last card, Flowcaster. 6 mana, 5/5, cost 2 less for each frozen enemy. So again, like, it's just very synergy based again. If you can get 1 freeze, it's a 4 mana 5/5, but you know, you do have to play it like right when you happen to have the frozen enemy. It could be a little awkward. Obviously there's a potential you can get it for like 0 mana, but that probably won't happen in Arena super often. But I think overall this card isn't going to be super great, but it's possible I'm underestimating the amount of freeze, because maybe you're going to start taking more Kona Colds just and stuff just because this exists, you know? So maybe this will just be really insane. But sorry to say, it's really going to depend on, you know, how many freezes you're seeing. You probably won't just take it automatically just for the potential, but you can definitely see if you have the freezes, then sure, why not? Right? But yeah, I think, you know, not too much more to say than that. Moving on to Paladin. Paladin's getting a new weapon. Seed Cloud Buckler. 3 mana, 2/3 weapon, which is not amazing by itself, just from that, but not terrible. And then Death Rattle. Give your minions Divine Shield. So that seems really good to me. Another card that's coming back actually in this rotation is Coghammer, which is Battlecry Divine Shield. Sometimes the Battlecry Divine Shield will be better if you're already winning, but this will help because the weapon will help you, you know, over time, like you're getting 6 damage into minions for 3 mana. That's really good, and that will provide you a net tempo gain, and then hopefully you're ahead, and then you can, you know, trigger this hopefully yourself, and you get to play, you know, you fill your board with minions. You have minions on board, which can gain Divine Shield potentially with initiative. And then you can also play, you know, spend all your mana. You're going to have at least like 5 mana by that point, right? So you can play 5 mana plus worth of minions and then give those Divine Shield too. Just a lot of potential Divine Shields. It's going to be something that you're going to, when your opponent does it, like you're just going to see like it's like a train that's just coming for you and you can't stop it. Like, you're just going to know that you're completely screwed. But yeah, extremely powerful card, and you're gonna be seeing a lot of it because it's a common. It honestly seems like, you know, there's the dormant minion is very kind of comparable to the dormant minion, except honestly this is probably better. The other one's a 3 mana 4/5 on a 2-turn delay. This one's, instead of being a giant body, it comes with a weapon. So yeah, very strong weapon for sure. And if you have another weapon too, you can even self-trigger it if you really wanted to, if you just really wanted a Divine Shield immediately. Worth noting that you could do that as well. But I doubt you'd want to do that too much because, you know, it's a 2/3 weapon is not nothing. You probably don't want to toss that away too often, but, you know, sometimes you might. Moving on to the next spell, Judgment of Justice. Interesting words. So this is a secret. When an enemy minion attacks, set its attack and health to 1. This seems very good. So Subdue was just a 2 mana targeted spell, which could do the same thing. So like, I mean, this is definitely no Subdue, right? Because the ability to target it is way better than having it be a secret. Obviously, it's just sometimes it's gonna do a hell of a lot. This is almost like it kind of functions kind of like, it's basically Paladin's version of a freezing trap, right? I think, obviously, so it's like, it's going to be completely useless. Worse than freezing trap if they have like a 1/1 or something. If they have a 1/1 rush, you might get screwed, but I think overall this is going to, you could choose when to play it, right? It's a 1 mana secret, so it's going to be very annoying to have to play against, probably, and yeah, just really solid in most of the time. But it's worth noting that sometimes it will be completely useless. So hopefully, if you're a Paladin, especially if you have weapons like the Seed Cloud Buckler, you can potentially keep, you know, all the little 1/1s and stuff off of your opponent's board. So I think you can get pretty good value out of this. If you're not getting value out of this, it probably means you're already losing. So I think this is going to be a pretty solid card overall. Still, it may be, I would probably say it's probably worse than Reckoning though. You'd probably just, Reckoning is guaranteed to hit something big, so you may just prefer that. But again, like, Reckoning doesn't deny a swing where this does, so, it's definitely solid. It's going to be a pretty good secret. It's going to be extremely annoying getting to play against. Then let's move on to Party Up, which is a 7-mana spell. Summon 5 2/2 adventures with the random bonus effects. As we were talking about earlier, there's the 8 possible bonus effects. As I talked about it earlier, like, so you have 5 shots, 5, 1, and 8 shots at getting things like Rush, Divine Shield, Poison. If you get like Divine Shield or especially Poison, and you have like a Broom. They released a video, Blizzard did, where they talked about it, and they even showed, I mentioned in my video, like, before seeing that, about talking about if you can Broom it, this card would be pretty nuts. And yeah, that's exactly what they showed in the video, that possibility. So yeah, that's going to be probably the combo you're going to really want. As I mentioned again, like, this is a lot of stats that are really vulnerable to AoE. So I'm a little cautious to pick it myself, but sometimes you'll take it. It's just, you're going to have to be careful playing it just to not, make yourself too vulnerable to AoE. But overall, it's a lot of stats. So, and if you have any of these kind of like Broom synergies or something, it's going to be worth going for. So it's overall going to be a pretty solid card. All right, let's move on to Priest. We have another Dungeoneer here, 3-mana 2/3 Battlecry draw spell. I think this is the least relevant effect in Arena off of the Dungeoneers. It's just, if it's a holy spell, reduce its cost by 2. Obviously, sometimes that'll be great to get that additional tempo, but a lot of holy spells, again, like, you're likely to actually have in your deck are gonna be like Renew, and then having a 0-mana Renew, probably not the biggest deal. It could be though, but yeah, often not going to be super relevant. But even if you do get it, but again, 3-mana 2/3 draw spell. Priests are often carried by their spells. A lot of times you have very few spells in your deck, and you're just hoping to draw a couple of those your 1 or 2 spells that are going to carry you. So it's going to be pretty good just for that, but not going to be like the craziest card ever, I don't think. Next we have an interesting card, 5-mana epic spell. Against all odds, destroy all odd attack minions. So they are still keeping the curse of Priest not being able to deal with 4 attack minions. They're just always going to dance around that. Always. So this is a really interesting and difficult card to really evaluate. There are a lot of 5 attack minions now, particularly like the big 4 drops and stuff. But yeah, I mean, this can potentially be a one-sided twisting nether. This can potentially be completely unplayable. This card honestly is really hard for me to evaluate. I'm really not sure how good this will be on average. It's really hard to say. I think it'll be pretty good because most people will play, some 3-5 attack minions. And if you can get like, even if you just get like 2 3/4s, for example, this card's getting pretty solid value at that point. And I think you can most likely get that most of the time. So I think it's going to be pretty good. Probably not going to be the best board clear. There's going to be so many board clears available to Priest. They have Light Bomb, Psychic Scream, all of the standard AoEs as well. This is probably not going to be the best one, but yeah, it's going to be pickable. Moving on to 1-mana card, Cleric of Anshe. If you've restored health this turn, same effect as the other Priest of Anshe, I think was the other card. You restored health this turn, discover a spell from your deck. So that will, another way to actually pull a spell out of your deck. Again, as we were mentioning, a 1-mana 1/2 draw card is great. The fact that you can't play it on turn 1 is a bit annoying. So it's not really a 1-drop. Because you're going to want the spell, pretty much. You can imagine, compare this to like Wand Thief or something. So you just play this whenever you happen to have nothing better to do. If you have to use your hero power, it's really like a 3-mana 1/2 discover though. Because honestly, you would use it when you actually want the hero power anyway. Or use some other kind of, renew your own face or something. Or, I mean, you can renew a minion too, so I think this is pretty pretty solid. Again, as I talked about the Dungeoneer, just being able to pull spells to your deck can really help you increase the consistency of Priest, which is something that seems to be lacking right now. So yeah, should be pretty good. Moving on to Rogue. Rogue has a Sneck, which is 3 mana 2/5 Water Moccasin. Stealth, has Poisonous while you have no other minions. So this seems like, I mean, naturally you can imagine just if you're playing a rather slower rogue, which you don't see too many of anymore, but I mean, just imagine, well, first of either your opponent's fighting with you on board, and then this can often just be a 3 mana 2/5 poison with stealth, which is absolutely nuts. Or you just imagine you're a slower deck again, and you don't do anything on one, or you draw a card on one, and then you just dagger on two, and then you always have an empty board. It's compared to, like, I mean, compare this to like Proud Defender. Proud Defender just gains 2 extra attack. It has Taunt, but only 1 additional stat. This has Poison. I mean, this just seems like a very, very strong card. Obviously, you won't always be able, if you're winning, you know, they limited it that if you're the aggressor, generally it's going to be a lot harder to actually get that poison off. That limits the potential of it a bit, but I mean, it just seems like the 3 mana 2/5 stealth already is a pretty good card, even without the poison. So yeah, it just seems like a very, very, very strong card here. Next we have Shroud of Concealment. 3 mana, draw 2 minions. Any of those minions that you play this turn gain stealth for 1 turn. It seems like a very terrifying card to actually have in this game for like constructed implications. They got rid of stealth for a reason. Obviously you can't control it quite as much unless you know, have all spells, which every rogue does now. That seems terrifying constructed actually, but in arena, you know, generally you want to play any of these like 3 mana draw 2 card spell. You do like to draw them or play them pretty late, so you will often be able to actually, you know, hopefully you'll have enough mana to actually play at least one of the minions, right? So you will probably get some additional value out of that stealth. And sometimes just having that stealth, like if you are falling behind, which you might be if you're spending 3 mana on a card like this, just being able to have stealth can either provide that finishing blow to the opponent if you're not behind, or if you're behind, just being able to actually, you know, rather than just constantly being knocked off board, to actually be able to stick a minion. So overall, I think this is pretty solid. It probably won't be the best, craziest rogue card, but it seems like a pretty pickable, pretty nice card draw card, honestly, because the flaw of a lot of card draw cards is that they tend to not really do anything to keep you alive. But again, that stealth mechanic may actually provide some pretty significant utility, either aggressively or defensively. So it seems like a pretty good card for that if you want some sustain. Next one is a card we've reviewed. Actually, I don't think I reviewed. This was revealed yesterday, but this was not on the release that I looked at, which was Savory Deviate Delight. Transform a minion in both players' hands into a pirate or stealth minion. So, in very specific, you could see very specific situations where this could get pretty good value. You know, if you know that your opponent's been sitting, especially if you know that they have a dragon or something, or, you know, it's just their turn 8. It's about to be their turn 8. You don't want to see a Proto Drake. And you hope if they have like a mostly empty hand, you think their last card might be a Proto Drake, or it's just something generally big. You can, you know, try to override it. You try to override it when you have just like a bunch of crap in your hand as well. So honestly, the fact that it's a 1 mana spell, a lot of times, again, it's just going to be completely random, so it might not be good enough to really draft it, but honestly, this would be a card where maybe, you know, if you just happen to discover it, you might like it, and if you can see that kind of situation happening, you might get a lot of value, and you could win games off of this effect. Generally, just going to be more of a, you know, hand disruption card in Constructed. You'll probably see it more there, but, you know, honestly, again, like, probably not a card you would want to draft a bunch, but it's probably, you know, you can probably get pretty good value out of it. Again, you would just use it, play all the good cards in your hand, and then you just have like a crappy minion, and then you just replace it, and at worst it just stays the same. Right? It'll probably be pretty good actually, on average, if you use it intelligently like that. You wouldn't just want to like rip it on turn 1 or anything. You wouldn't think, but yeah, could be solid. Next, moving on to Shaman. Shaman has the last, I believe the last Dungeoneer, Primal Dungeoneer. Battle Cry, draw a spell. If it's a nature spell, also draw an elemental. So it's interesting, the three Dungeoneers do 3 different things. One was tempo, one was mana cheat, and this one is just value. If it's a nature spell, draw an elemental. So we talked about this again in the other video as well, but a lot of Shaman spells are nature. Unlike the other ones, like a solid like at least like probably 50, 60, 70% of your spells in Shaman that you actually want to pick are nature. The only ones that really aren't are, you know, like guidance and a couple other ones. We do see another card next to it in this list, but yeah, there's a lot of nature spells, so there's a pretty good chance you can trigger this, and you usually also have a few elementals in Shaman, so like it's realistic that you can actually trigger this one. This is probably actually the most, not sure, maybe this or Priest, the most likely one to actually trigger. And Shaman is super, you know, lacking generally in card draws, so I think this is going to be a pretty nice addition to Shaman. Worst case, again, 3 mana, 2/3 draw spell. Pretty good for Shaman, so I think this will probably be the most, I'm guessing this will be the most common one to actually see out of the 3 Dungeoneers. Next we have Perpetual Flame, a 1 mana spell, deal 3 damage to a random enemy minion. If it dies, recast this. Overload 1. So, interesting. I assume it recasts this, and Overload is part of the spell cast. I don't know this 100%, I haven't seen this, but based off my understanding, that would imply that you paid the Overload again and again. So, if I'm wrong, how good this card is really depends on whether or not that's true. Again, I can't edit this video, so I'm not gonna. So if it is the case, I'm assuming you have to pay the Overload multiple times. If you have to pay the Overload multiple times, that's gonna be really expensive. If you're killing like 4 minions, especially if you're killing 1/1s, this is gonna be pretty inefficient because that Overload is really gonna bone you. But if it's not, if you only pay the Overload once, then it's just extremely efficient. You can compare it to, and I'm assuming that you have to pay the mana cost again, so you can compare this to, you know, there's like the Demon Hunter one, which is like 1 mana, deal 2 repeatedly. This one's essentially like, you know, just like repeated lightning bolts that automatically cast themselves. And the fact that, you know, if they have multiple minions, this could be kind of annoying, because the thing I do know for sure is that it's a random enemy minion. So if they have 1 minion, that's, you know, they have a bunch of 3 health minions, but 1 4 health minion, you're gonna be rolling the dice pretty hard there. But yeah. So overall, I mean, sometimes, like, you know, you're just gonna want, you may even be willing to pay the Overload, but again, like, this would be probably worse than Lightning Storm if you're really hitting a bunch of things. But sometimes it's just gonna be really solid. Actually, wait, I take this back. This is the problem with not editing this video. You know, come to think, it's like, wait, how would that work though? No, you can't be paying the cost multiple times, right? No, that doesn't make any sense actually. Because what, you're gonna, like, with how the mana works? No, I don't think so, because like, it's not gonna like keep sucking mana away from you if you're already out of mana. No, that doesn't make any sense actually. No, this is just a 1 mana deal 1. This is just a 1 mana Overload, and then it just deals the damage again, right? I'm not sure. Honestly, I'm sorry, but like, I would have to look this up because I don't understand how this works. So depending on how that works, it could be very good or very bad, and that's what we'll talk about now. Next is Wailing Vapor. 1 mana 1/3. After you play an elemental, gain +1 attack. Okay, so it's a 1 mana 1/3, which is, you know, decent. Not super great. You usually don't have like so many elementals. If you get 1 elemental and you get a 1 mana 2/3, you know, it's great. You're probably not gonna like pop off super hard with this in arena, but you know, decent 1-drop. I think probably you'd rather have like the Murloc 1-drop most of the time, unless you have like a deck literally full of elementals. But you know, solid card. Next we will look at Warlock. So 2 mana spell, Unstable Shadow Blast. No, yeah, for the other one, like, feel free to, I'm sure people will know better than me how this card works in the comment section, so make sure to definitely leave a comment below and inform me and inform everyone else. Unstable Shadow Blast. This is an interesting card. I guess they liked Piercing Shot so much, they decided to give Warlock an anti-Piercing Shot. So it's 2 mana, deals 6 damage to a minion. Excess damage hits your hero. So there is some potential that you might actually want to, you know, self-damage your hero. You wouldn't want to, like, shoot yourself for 5 generally, but, you know, if you have, like, Dark Glare, this can even be 1 mana, deal 6. Or deal 5 at that point, I guess. But that would be the ideal situation. But yeah, I mean, the fact that this is 2 mana, deal 6, obviously, you know, sometimes you're going to have to pay. You're just going to want to deal 3 damage or something, hopefully not less than that. But, you know, so if it's 2 mana, deal 3, take 3. I think Dark Bomb's in the game, so that is pretty bad. But just the potential of this being a 2 mana fireball on a minion, it seems like it's just, that's too efficient to possibly, you know, give up. At the same time, like, if you have the ability to deal 6 damage, most of the time, unless you're like super desperate, you're not going to want to hit something for just 2 damage when you could, you know, how often are you going to fireball a 2 health minion? Not never, but not very often. So I mean, I think generally it's just going to be like 2 mana, deal 5 and take a damage. Like, that's, you know, really strong. So that seems like a very strong spell. It's going to be a spell you're going to be seeing a lot of. Card you're probably going to need to be playing around, expecting Warlock to have it, because it's just such a, you're going to want to think about, you know, do you want to play that 6 health minion, or do you want to play something that's a little bit less vulnerable until you've really kind of baited this kind of thing out. It's a very strong swing there. Talking about strong swings, we also have the next spell, which is Final Gasp. Deal 1 damage to a minion for 1 mana. If it dies, summon a 2/2 adventure with a random bonus effect. So, you know, the downside of this compared to like an Aug Merchant, which, I mean, Guardian Aug is the same downside, but, you know, you wouldn't want to use this unless you really needed to proc like a Divine Shield. If you proc like a Divine Shield, obviously you're not getting the Adventurer. But generally speaking, I mean, you can imagine, like, I mean, Moral Coil is really solid. You're just getting draw a card with this. I think summoning an Adventurer, just getting it on the field, is generally going to be better than drawing a card, especially in such an aggressive tempo meta like we've had, which I don't see too much reason to expect that will change here, but, you know, we could see the meta could change. But yeah, I mean, I think this just seems like an extremely powerful card. At its best case, tempo-wise, this would be like a 1 mana 2/2 Divine Shield. Deal 1 damage as well. I mean, that's like 3 mana cards solidly. 3 mana worth of tempo easily, so it's very strong tempo card there. And next we have a 4 mana 2/6 Demon, Stealer of Souls. After you draw a card, change its cost to health instead of mana. And it says that this is a permanent effect, so you don't have to play it immediately. If you get something like, imagine you get like Siphon Soul or something, you can have a 0 mana Assassinate, which would be a net of 2 lost health. You could just imagine. So but yeah, I mean, potentially this is just kind of a nutty high roll card. I mean, you play this on turn 4, you hit Scrapyard Colossus, your opponent leaves the game. It's just, you hit Proto Drake, you hit just the other 8-drop, the Demon Taunt, you hit just anything really. Like, I mean, that's just like so much tempo. This seems honestly pretty busted. It's not always going to win the game by itself, obviously, because sometimes, you know, you might just get like a Final Gasp, right? You might just get like a 1 mana card and then it's not such a big deal. But at turn 4, like, this seems honestly unfair. It just provides so much. In its best case, just, you're totally worth paying. Generally on turn 4, like, you're going to be willing to pay pretty much any health cost to get something, just cheat out like a Pro Drake or something. You'd probably be willing to pay 16 health, right? The 8 health is going to be nothing at that point most of the time. So seems really busted. It's going to be pretty frustrating card, honestly. Honestly scares me. Next we'll move on to Warrior, Man at Arms, 2 mana 2/3 minion, common. If you have a weapon equipped, gain +1/+1. So generally speaking, unless you have the next card on the list, which I might as well allude to right now, unless you have that weapon, you're usually not going to have a weapon on turn 2. So, and that is a rare weapon, the Whetstone Hatchet that we're looking at right next to it right here. So generally speaking, it's not going to be active on turn 2, but a lot of the times you'll be able to get just a 2 mana 3/4 on a later turn. So I mean, that's pretty solid. Imagine you even played like Gnarg on one, then you can just play it as a 3-drop, and then you have a free mana, and you might just be able to play something else, right? So it's anything, any of these times where it's a 2 mana, 2/3 with upside, it's going to be a solid card. Next, let's talk about the Whetstone Hatchet, the 1 mana 1/4 weapon. After your hero attacks, give a minion in your hand +1 attack. This is absolutely insane. So Light's Justice was a really good arena card, and if it was still around, it would be a really good arena card. And this is just a Light's Justice with 4 free hand buffs, 4 free attack of hand buffs. That just seems absolutely nutty. I mean, you can imagine, like, with a lot of the minions that you could potentially buff, even just like a Crab Rider or something. A lot of the things you just happen to have in a warrior. Any rush gains attack. Like, there's just, you're getting it's a good card, and then you're just getting a bunch of free crap on top of an already really good card. Seems like, and in a class that really likes as many pings as they can get, because, you know, they don't have a ping hero power. So absolutely insanely strong card there. There's not much to say, not much more to say there. Last card, we have a legendary Crash, Lord of Turtling. Nice. 6 mana 3/9, and it is a turtle card because in more ways than one, because it has a frenzy, gain 8 armor, and Death Rattle, equip a 2/5 turtle spike. This just seems like a really weird example. It's like a kind of a slow card, obviously, but I mean, the fact that you gain 8 armor, pretty much guaranteed, because I mean, unless it gets hard removed or silenced or transformed, you're getting that frenzy. Nothing's going to deal 9 damage to it on turn 6 or 7. Usually. Yeah, I mean, that's just, it's going to keep you alive. And then a 2/5 spike, honestly, it could be a downside sometimes, because it might prevent you from, you know, it means you can't really play a Gorehowl with it or something, because it's going to overrate it, right? But generally speaking, I mean, you're probably not going to be too sad to have a 2/5 weapon. And worst case, like, if you're just trying to live, then even if you don't want to kill stuff, you'll probably kill stuff, but it's 10 damage face eventually, right? If you do it long enough. It's a really interesting card. I mean, generally, it's a lot of, it does a lot. It's just a really sticky minion. It's a little bit slow on board again, but I mean, you know, you can build around it hopefully. So it's probably not going to be like the greatest arena card because it is so slow on tempo, on actual tempo. But, you know, it does a lot. That's not a terrible card. Next we move on to the neutrals because they put the legendaries first here. Mutinous the Devourer, of course, everyone's favorite card, number 1. 7 mana 4/4. Battlecry, eat a minion in your opponent's hand, gain its stats. As I said, I think this is a pretty solid card. Probably not the most busted arena card, just by raw power level. But I mean, if you just imagine that you eat like a 3/3, you're getting a 7/7, and you're discarding a card from your opponent's hand. And the thing to think about is that anything that's going to be a low roll is very likely a lot of the cards that have lower stats are lower stats because they're battle cries. So if you're removing a battle cry, you're getting additional or removing additional value from their hand. So I think in the general case, this card is going to be pretty decent. And you know, in certain cases, if you just happen to eat a Pro Drake or something, potentially game winning. So I think overall going to be a pretty strong card. Next we have a card which I think is terrifying. Oh man, I thought this was a Druid card. I saw this card. I thought this was a Druid card. This is neutral. Oh no. So we have Archdruid Neralex. 3 mana 3/3 dormant for 2 turns. While dormant, add a dream card to your hand at the end of your turn. So assuming you just play this normally, it's kind of funny. It's a little worse if you like were to like transform into this, because you would actually only get 1 proc if it was transformed by your opponent with like devolving missiles or something. But generally speaking, I mean, you're gonna just play this and you get 2 dream cards. And compared to like, so I mean, this is basically like a 3 mana Ysera. But I mean, you would imagine like if Ysera was like a 3 mana 2/4, it would probably be better because you didn't have to spend 9 mana on it. And really what you want is the dream card more than the body, right? But this is, the downside of it obviously is that you can't actually make use of the body for several turns. You know, it has like a 2-turn delay as opposed to just playing a 3/3. So defensively it's a little bit worse, but that gets entirely offset by just the fact that if you get like a dream, or if you're able to activate a Nightmare in spite of playing 3 mana do nothing, or you get, especially if you get Ysera Awakens, it's totally worth it. I mean, it's great that you can play this, and then if you immediately get Awakens, boom, probably just win the game immediately. And yeah, and then you get a second dream card. You know, the fact that you can't interact with Dormant in any way in this game, so you are guaranteed to get 2. Unlike Ysera, where you will often, you know, the Ysera will just get removed or something. You're guaranteed 2. So this is a neutral card, legendary. It's going to be absolutely insane. I imagine this being like, I think this is going to be completely auto-pick. I guess you can have a conversation about it against like other super good legendaries. Like you probably wouldn't pick it over like Ysera, but the new Ysera. But yeah, I mean, this just seems extremely strong. It's going to be one of the stronger legendaries, I think. In games, it's going to be a bit frustrating as well, because games are going to be completely determined by just, you know, dream card RNG. Part of the reason I do like the design of the new Ysera is it does remove, you know, that kind of like RNG aspect, but this card is just giving it back. So I'm not really looking forward to this one, to be totally honest. But moving on to the last couple cards. So there were only 3 other neutrals. They're all commons. First one we've talked about in the other video, Devouring Ectoplasm is what it turns out its name is. Summon a 2/2 adventurer with a random bonus effect. So yeah, again, like 3 mana, 3/2. That summons a 2/2 death rattle. That's already great. And then you get an extra bonus effect on the death rattle. On top of it, it could give you Rush, it could give you Divine Shield, could give you Poison, which could, in any of these cases, could be extremely powerful. So yeah, it's a very solid card. Next one we have Selfless Sidekick. 7 mana, 6/6. Equip a random weapon from your deck. This card seems, I mean, obviously if you're not playing a couple, you know, if you're not playing like Warrior, really I think the only class I'm probably going to be likely to pick this in is Warrior. Shaman, it's like most of your weapons are relatively small, right? Like you get like a 3 mana weapon. 7 mana, 6/6, get like a 3 mana weapon. It's fine, but it's honestly like at that point you might not want to be taking the face damage necessarily. So, and obviously by turn 7, one of the flaws is that you don't tend to have that many weapons in Shaman, even Warrior right now in my experience. So you need to be getting a sizable weapon for this to be worth it. So even in those classes, I'm not sure this is going to be a great arena card. You're probably not going to take this super often. Obviously, you know, if you have the deck for it, take it. But I think most decks aren't even in those classes, or this is not necessarily going to be the best card. But we'll see. Especially if it's more of a value meta. If you have enough weapons to think that you'll pull it, then you would like this card, because there's a lot of value for, you know, one card. But I don't actually think it's going to cut it. It would cut in the current meta right now, unless you have the perfect deck. And then the last card here is Meeting Stone. 1 mana, 0/2. At the end of your turn, add a 2/2 adventurer with random bonus effect to your hand. And they are 2 mana, by the way, so you do have to spend 2 mana on the cards. So this is like, I mean, imagine this is like Evil Totem. It's just like Adventurer Totem, basically. It's not a totem, though. But yeah, I mean, any of these cards that can just give like infinite value, even if, you know, I think I'll just scroll back up to the adventurers here. Even though like these are like decent cards, they're not like super crazy for the most part. But they're like, some of them would be like bad 2-drops, and other ones of them, as my alarm goes off, some of them would be like cards that you wouldn't necessarily want to pay 2 mana for immediately, but other ones, you know, like a 2/2 Divine Shield, that's a great 2-drop, right? So yeah, I mean, the threat of this card is a lot of value, especially if you play it on turn 1. If your opponent has to, like, you know, spend removal on it, it's great. If your opponent, you know, if it gets to stick and you get multiple things, it's great, right? So seems like a very solid card. You're guaranteed at least one, so it's never gonna be bad. It might not be what you want exactly, but obviously at least it's gonna replace itself with a, you know, playable 2-drop, right? So it's never gonna be bad. It just seems, and it has the potential to actually, if it just doesn't die, and you can even get the taunt to protect itself, it just seems like, yeah, it could actually get out of control. So yeah, it's this looks like a pretty good card. Yeah, so I think that's it we have here. Again, the mini set will be coming out tomorrow if you endured through this, as I unfortunately could not edit. then you are a true champion. We will see you in Hearthstone. Unfortunately, I will be as I say this, I will be on vacation, so I'm not going to be able to stream, so I won't have any videos on YouTube with actual gameplay from these cards for until at least like probably Monday at the earliest. It might even be like Tuesday. So that's too bad, but yeah, I'll get that stuff out there as soon as possible. Try to queue up a couple old runs for you know, you guys probably release one tomorrow and another one maybe on Saturday or something, but yeah. Of course, appreciate y'all being here with all the support, guys. Thanks a lot again. We'll see you guys next time.